Sir, whenever you're ready.
Hi, I want to thank you for inviting me to speak to the Values Voters Summit. My name is Steve Scalise. I'm the House Majority Whip, and I represent Southeast Louisiana in Congress. I think we all know right now that our values are under attack here in Washington like never before. As someone who was the lead author of the constitutional amendment in Louisiana that put the definition of marriage as one man and one woman in our state constitution, I led the way in a state where 78% of our voters agreed that marriage should be defined in our state constitution. And yet now you have the Supreme Court come out with a decision that undermines that very constitutional amendment and amendments like it all across the country. We know one thing, as people who believe in life, believe in religious freedom, believe in the values that made this country great. The only way we're going to be able to get this country back on track is by standing up and fighting for the values that we believe in. Now, I first want to apologize for not being able to be with you in person. Obviously, it's been a very tumultuous day on Capitol Hill. We had some votes, but I think as all of you know right now, John Boehner announced that he's going to be stepping down as Speaker at the end of October. So we've got a lot of big decisions to make in this town, in the House especially, in the weeks and months ahead. But there's one thing that we need to do as a House Republican leadership, and that is to stand up and fight for those values. One of the things I've done as House Majority Whip is to put an emphasis in bringing more pro-life legislation to the House floor. In fact, when we brought the pain-capable bill to ban abortion after 20 weeks, I worked very closely with all of the pro-life groups to make sure we brought the strongest bill possible to the floor, and I did something that no other Majority Whip has done in the history of Congress. I actually whipped a pro-life vote. Now, why that had never happened before, I sure can't explain, but I said one thing. Whatever the reason was that previous Majority Whips didn't set that priority, it's a priority to me. My faith is critically important to the things that I bring to leadership in Congress. It's part of who we are. It's part of the fabric of why we believe so deeply in this country. And so I made a commitment that I would actually whip that and send a message to our entire conference that it's a priority that we pass strong pro-life legislation. We've brought multiple pieces of legislation to go after Planned Parenthood. And you know what? We can't stop that fight until we're victorious. Now, when you look at this presidential race that's ahead of us, I think there are more really solid candidates that anybody that is looking for something in a presidential candidate. You probably have one or two or three people that can fit the bill. But at the end of the day, we've got to unite and elect a conservative president to start turning this country around. And one thing we've got to do is make sure that when Supreme Court appointments come up, that we actually do a better job of vetting. Why is it that we lose so many tough votes? If it's a 5-4 decision, it seems like we're always on the short end of the stick, even with Republican-appointed judges. After we win the White House, which we have to do, with a conservative president, just go look at the times that a conservative has lost. When we run as conservatives, we win elections. We win the presidency. When presidential candidates run as moderates, the track record hasn't been quite so good. So the first thing we need to do is stand up for our conservative principles through the presidential election and elect a conservative president, but then start governing like conservatives all the way through. And when Supreme Court picks come up, we've got to make sure that we're vetting so that our picks follow through on the values that are important to us as values voters. So I want to thank you for what you do to go out there on the streets at the grassroots level and fight for the values that are under attack here in Washington. It's too important for the future of our country so that my two children, Madison and Harrison, have the same opportunity that I had today, and it's at risk. We all know it's at risk, and it's important that we stand together and come together as conservatives to make sure that we're fighting for those values that made this country great. Thanks again. It's an honor to be with you, and it's an honor to fight alongside of you for the values that are important to this great nation that was created under God.